Okay, we want to do a few statistical things to the data shown here. It's basically just exam scores of students. What I think I'll start doing is I'll just go through and show you the functions for each one of these, and they're all very simple, right? So mean, again, that's the arithmetic mean. We typically think of this as the average, and that's actually the name of the value that they use in Excel, which is average, right? So I can just type in average. Now it's going to expect to see a series of numbers. I just come over here, highlight the numbers that I want to average like so, and hit the enter key. Okay, so that the mean is 70.1. Now, the median, you'll be not surprised to know that I can just use the functions that's called median, and I can highlight these and select those. Okay, so you can see this is pretty normal distribution. Those values are not very far apart. Now, let's suppose let's talk about the extremes like we talked about in the video describing this. If there's a 0, right? So that's an extreme value. Someone didn't take the exam and I hit enter. Notice how the mean changes and the median changes. They're both going to change, but one's going to change much more drastically than the other one. So watch, the mean goes from 70 to 67, okay? And the other one goes 72 to 75, okay? So maybe that's not the best, that's not hugely, but you definitely see that the mean changes more than the other. Okay, let's let's suspect for one time where we have an extreme example like this goes to 10,000, which is not a number you typically get on an exam, but you get the idea here, right? So you'll notice that the median again is 71, the mean is 67. When I hit enter, the median doesn't move barely. It's 72 and a half still, but now the mean is 400. So when you have these extreme outliers, is where the mean really kind of falls apart. Okay, it's good for a nice symmetrical normal distribution, but as you can see that the median might be better if you've got outliers going on. I'm going to go ahead and undo, get back to my original here. Okay, going back in, mode equals mode. Not very challenging here. Highlight the data and hit OK. Okay, so 74 shows up the most often, right? You've got a 74 here. It's just counting, which ones you see the most. 74 there, that sort of thing. Okay, minimum. If we want to get the range, we can get the minimum. So put in the minimum. You can get the maximum. Oops, I forgot the equal sign. Equals max. Then highlight this guy like so. And then standard deviation. Now, I'm just going to use the basic example, but there are several kinds that you can use, right? There's a .p, there's a .s. The .p is if you're using the entire population, which is what we're doing here. S is for a sample. Okay, so since we're doing population, I'll choose standard deviation .p. Okay, but it's basically, is it n or n minus 1 in that equation? Whichever one you use for our purposes at this point is fine. Okay, and again, remember this measures how dispersed the values actually are. Okay, and again, 15. So what that basically means, remember, is about 2/3 of the scores are going to be between, that'd be 55 and 85. Okay, and that about 1/3 will fall outside of that. Okay, and again, it's 2/3 gonna be plus or minus 15 from 70, right? Plus or minus 1 standard deviation from the mean gives me that standard, that value. That's approximately what that means. Now, the next thing that I want to show you is how to create a histogram. Okay, so we'll highlight our data. It is a chart. Okay, so we'll go into insert. Okay, but now there's one here called insert statistic chart, and we want to go ahead and do the histogram like so. Okay. Now there are defaults. You can stick with the defaults if you want. If you want, you can come in and mess around with things. Again, you can put in titles and different things like that. Okay. But more importantly, what I want to do is go into format. No, chart design. bear with me, and I go format data series. Okay, now we get this guy over here, and we can go in and make changes to the chart by going into the horizontal axis, right? And then you see right here, it's got bins and it's got automatic. Okay, so automatic sometimes will work, but sometimes it's much more helpful to put your own in there. Okay, so for example, I could do bin width, and if it's a grades, we could go 90, 80, 70, 60. So every 10, we could do that like so. Okay, and you see now it puts them in like that. Now these aren't exactly what I'm looking for, okay, because those aren't the 90, 80, 70, 60 that I was looking for. But now we've got a width of 10. So we have an let's do an underflow bin. So anything under that would be 60 will go into one bin, right? So now we've got that set up. So if it's below 60, those are your Fs, those are your Ds, right? And so on and so forth. And you can get that title. So we can set this up. There's lots of different ways you can play around with it by the number of bins, overflow, you know, that sort of thing. That's the key thing to go in here with the, again, that was under the, you click on here, you go format plot area, excuse me, and then you can change your horizontal axis, which is really what we're kind of looking for here, okay? And deal with the bins and setting those up, because taking the automatic is generally not the best way to go about it. But again, now you can see that 7 people got Fs and 6 people got Ds, and you know, that sort of thing. You can go through with that. So that's how you set up a histogram. Of course, you can change the title of this, right? Grade distribution or something like, not guard distribution, grade distribution, right? That sort of thing, and I'll let you, this, this would be exam score, right? That sort of a thing. Okay, and you can play around with that as needed, but that's how you go ahead and create a histogram. Again, the key thing here is to insert the histogram right here, just like I have. And again, if you want to mess around with the data options, okay, you can mess around with those bins, and that's really the key thing that you'll want to mess around with and get to your liking for the histogram that you create.